Hi, I'm Nate Sipple with Tight Lines Fly Fishing Company, and today we're going to do a quick overview of spring steelheading, some of the gear that we use, some of the basics, some of the rigging here in the Great Lakes Basin. We are going to, for the purpose of this video, specifically talk about spring, because the techniques that we use and some of the gear that we use is a little bit different in the spring than it is in the fall. So the first thing we're going to talk about, you get to the river, you're ready to go, is the rod and reel. Most of the work that we are doing is being done with a 9-foot or 10-foot 7 or 8 weight. I like the little bit longer rods, the 10-foot rods. Some guys are even going to the switch rods for some of the nymph and indicator stuff because it gives you a little bit more reach, a little bit longer mends and stuff like that. Easier to roll cast with, but a 9-foot rod is just fine for that. For the reel, just any kind of larger reel that's going to hold a couple hundred yards, 150 yards of backing in a 7 or an 8 weight line is fine. I personally like the black finishes because they absorb a little bit of sunlight, and on those days that it's right on the border of freezing and not, they can be kind of a help. You don't have to worry a lot about having a really good drag, because in the Great Lakes here, a lot of the stuff we're fishing in the spring is very small. So just a good, solid, reliable reel that'll hold a 7 or 8 weight line is just perfect. Now for the line, one thing that you have to take into consideration is that our springtime rivers are going to be very cold. We've got a lot of snow melt, a lot of runoff. So you don't want to be using a line that has like a saltwater core or anything like that. I like the Scientific Angler's Mastery Textured Nymph Indicator line. It's a very good line. It's a weight forward design, a full floating line with a bright orange tip. It'll help to throw the big strike indicator, split shot, nymphs and eggs and stuff like that we're commonly using in the spring. But it also doubles very well as a good streamer line if you do want to decide to do that. But any weight forward floating line is going to work very well. So now that you've got the right line selected for our type of spring steelhead that we're doing, we're going to talk a little bit quickly about the leaders and tippet that we're using, which are a very important, maybe the most important connection between yourself and the fish. For the leaders that we're using, anything in the 8 to 10 pound range, around 9 to 10 feet, is very common. We have here a 2X Rio indicator leader, and then also just a 9-foot 8 pound Rio salmon steelhead leader. And both of these will work equally well for the nymphing or for swinging streamers in our springtime steelhead streams. Now for tippet, we're using primarily fluorocarbon, and we like to use something like the Rio Fluoroflex Plus here. I like to carry with me, the ones that I primarily am using are 1, 2, and 3X. Do the majority of our work for us, but I will carry even a little bit smaller, although it's very tough to land a fresh spring steelhead on much less than 7 or 8 pound test. But it's important to carry a fairly wide selection or a wide variety of fluorocarbon with you so that you can rebuild leaders and be situated for just about any scenario you might run into. Next, I'm going to talk to you about some of the basic accessories and things that we carry and bring with us to the river for spring steelheading here in the Midwest. So you've got the waders, the clothing, the rod, the reel, stuff like that. These are the other things that I believe are key and should always have with us. One is some sort of waterproof outer layer. This is the Simms G3 jacket. It can be as complex as a full Gore-Tex wading jacket like this, or as simple as just a packable rain jacket that you can put in your vest. But we're commonly dealing with snow and rain in the spring, so it's very important to have something like that to keep you dry and warm. Next is a net. Now this to me doesn't matter what you get. It can be a very expensive custom wooden net like this, or it can be a simple aluminum one from Fleet Farm, but the emphasis here is really not on us, but it's on the fish. You want to have some kind of way that when you get one of these big powerful fish that you can deal with it, especially if you're fishing by yourself and you don't have a friend there to help you land it. So very important to have a net that's big enough, deep enough. You can see this has got a really deep bag on there to help take care of those fish and avoid having to bring them up onto a sandy beach or someplace dry. And lastly, as far as the big accessories, is some sort of pack. This is one of the new Fish Pond waterproof packs, but a lot of the companies out there, Sage and Sims and Fish Pond and the new Umpqua ones, are great for carrying all your gear in. Again, this is just a vessel to carry the accessories, the flies, things like that we need. Some people wear vests and that's just fine. I like something like this. It's got the straps on it to carry your extra layers with and stuff if you want to take those off. Lots of outer things to carry your extras with you to the stream, but important to have a way to carry all of your gear. Some of the other accessories that I really like to have with me on the stream, a basic stream thermometer, and this is just the Fish Pond one, but I like to take notes on my spring steelheading stuff, and it's very important to note when those fish are going to be spawning, going to be most active, things like that. So a basic stream thermometer, a hook file. This is just the Dr. Slick medium-sized hook file. Very, very important, especially when you're fishing the nymphs and eggs. You want to have them down there near the bottom in the fish's zone. You're going to be hitting a lot of rocks, logs, things like that. So something to have to be able to touch up the hook points. An assortment of strike indicators. I've got everything in here from little half-inch ones up to the big 1-inch ones. Both the thingamabobber style as well as just the styrofoam ball style. But I like to carry a lot of different ones with me, extra rubber bands and stuff like that, so that I'm set up for just about any occasion. Split shot. One thing that is an absolute must when you're fishing this style. I like to use the non-toxic, non-lead types in a variety of different sizes, from 1 to 6, sometimes even up as big as BB. Again, that's dependent on the water levels and stuff like that you'll be dealing with. A nipper, obviously, very, very important to have when you're going through all the different rigging and stuff like that. And then the other one that I'll show you in a moment here when we're going over the rigging of some of our stuff, some sort of, this is just a clipped off Waddington shank, but I'm going to be going over how to rig our new trout beads here in a moment. And it's nice to have something like this to be able to punch out the old toothpicks that are in the middle of the bead. So anything like that, some sort of poking device. Forceps are very, very important to have. And then just an assortment. This is just a waterproof match container. You can use whatever you like, but toothpicks for the bead rigging. And again, we'll be going over that in just a moment. But that's basically, in a nutshell, other than the leaders and tippet, which we already went over, the most important things that I carry in my pack to the stream for spring steelheading. Now for spring steelheading, I carry a fairly wide variety of flies with me. Even though we're primarily doing a lot of nymph and egg fishing, we are doing some swinging and even some surface stuff. So this is a condensed version of what I bring with me every single time, start to finish. The first one is going to be my nymphs. And for my nymphs, I'm going to have everything from size 12 and 14 soft hackles and caddis, all the way up to big size 4 and 6 stonefly type imitations, in a variety of different colors and different weights to cover just about any type of water level and water clarity. Next is going to be my egg box. Now this is going to have everything in it from the Estaz and chenille eggs up to the soft otter eggs in a variety of different colors. Here are some of the solid ones. And then I also have some of the clown type eggs on this side, little Estaz ones, the nuclear eggs, things like that. Now I also like to carry with me a very small box of streamers. I like to be ready to be able to swing flies in the spring, so I'll have some different streamers with me that will allow me to cover water by swinging flies. And I also like to have a couple streamers that double for both swinging and casting, because a lot of the times if you get to the springtime rivers and the fish aren't necessarily in the river or the river's blown out, I like to have some streamers with me, bait fish patterns, things like that, that I can throw at the mouth of these rivers. If you want to go out and wade on the beaches, that can be a very, very good option. And lastly, an assortment of beads. We are now carrying these trout beads. They are a very, very good option for spring steelhead fishing, fished in tandem with a nymph. And they give the fish a little bit different look than your traditional glow bug and yarn type eggs. They have a nice sheen to them, a nice iridescence in the water. They sink a little bit quicker, and they have a lot of different color options. So this has become very, very effective for us fished in tandem with a nymph for spring steelhead. Okay, now we're going to go over quickly how we rig our nymph and indicator leader here for spring steelheading. So we've got a standard tapered leader here. This end would go to your fly line, and typically our point fly, I like to use some sort of bigger nymph like this, some sort of stone fly, something with some legs and some weight to it. I like the heavier, bigger flies, if at all possible, to eliminate having to have that extra split shot on the line. So right at the end of our 9 or 10 foot standard leader, we're just going to put our nymph on here with just a standard improved clinch knot. And sometimes these little rubber legs like to get in the way a little bit. You can just kind of pull them out of there with your fingers. Once you've got your nymph tied on, or your point fly, we're going to go ahead and add the dropper, which in this case is going to be a yarn egg. Select a piece of tippet. I like to give myself about 12 to 14 inches to start with so that I have enough for tying the knots. And you have two options here now. Your first option on a bigger nymph like this is that you can actually tie another improved clinch knot right to the eye, but I typically prefer to go off the back, off the bend. So I'm going to loop it and kind of hang it right through the hook bend like that, just like that, and we're just going to spin the nymph now and tie another improved clinch right off the back. Now I put my finger over the hook point right here. You're going to want to be careful, but I do that to eliminate that loop sliding off of there. And we're going to add that right off the back of the hook right there. So you've got this end of your tippet going to your leader here, and this going off the back. Now we're going to come in here and just trim this tag end. And as you can see, I like to keep my dropper, somewhere in that 8 to 12 inch range behind that nymph. So we got a little bit extra here. We're going to take care of that. And then we're going to add just a simple yarn egg here. This is an Oregon cheese. Right to the end of that little piece of dropper tippet. Again, with just an improved clinch knot. 5-6 turns or so is usually about all you need. You can come in and trim that off. So that's what the two flies are going to look like. Again, about 8 to 12 inches apart from each other. I'll go in and pinch the barbs on these when I'm ready to fish. Now, a really important step is going to be your split shot. That can be the difference in spring steelheading, especially when you're talking about a water temperature below 40 between catching fish and not. I like to keep them about 12 to 16 inches away from my first fly. It's a very common mistake. Some people think that they should put them down here next to the egg. You want to put them next to your first fly or your point fly, not the dropper. And again, we've just got the non-toxic football shot here in a size 1. And just go ahead and pinch that onto the line. And then lastly, the last thing that's going to go onto the line after your split shot is going to be your strike indicator. Now this is something that there is no preset, predetermined distance or height for. It's going to depend on obviously where you're fishing. I like to go at least twice the distance of the water that I'm fishing. So if I'm fishing a run that's 3 feet deep, I like to have that strike indicator at least 6 feet up from this first fly, from your point fly. And in this case, it's just going to be a thingamabobber style. And this is a 1-inch. This is a little bit bigger than normal, but I'm just going to use this one for demonstration purposes. And this one is really simple. You're just going to take wherever you want to, whatever point you want to put that in your leader, you're going to double it over like so, make a little loop, and then you can see you got this little rubber grommet guy sticking up off the end of the ball there, and you're going to push that little loop through that grommet, and then expand the loop on the other side, and go right around the ball with it, and then pull it tight. And that'll actually grip quite nicely in there, and give you a very, very good target, good strike indicator to watch there. So again, you've got the butt section, strike indicator, split shot, and in some cases I'll have as many as 4 or 5 of these split shot on my line. Again, it's going to depend on the depth and the speed of the water that you're fishing. Your point fly, which is usually some sort of larger stone fly, something like that, that's a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier to get their attention. And then anywhere from 8 to maybe 12 inches below that, your dropper fly, which in this case is just a simple yarn egg. And that's a very basic spring steelhead rig that we would use here in the Midwest. Now another option as a dropper fly in our nymph indicator rig here, as opposed to the standard yarn glow bug type egg that we are used to, is the trout beads. And you can see we have a variety of them here, which we are now a dealer of, the trout beads and all of their accessories, lots of different color options, lots of different sizes and stuff. Here are the blood dot ones with the little red blood dot that you can see on them. It gives the bead a little bit extra color. We have just the standard ones here, iridescence in the water, very, very realistic looking in a couple different colors, and then the mottled ones, which are another very nice option. We also stock the hooks, which are a perfect match for the beads in a variety of different colors, and the pegs here to hold the eggs in place, or the beads in place. And we're going to go over here real quickly. Again, this is something that came to us from kind of an Alaskan style of fishing, but this has given us another option for an egg imitation to go along with our nymphs on our spring rigs here. So again, I basically removed the yarn egg from the back of it, so I'm going to rig this up as we normally would, starting with the big nymph here. And you're just going to take your piece of tippet going off the back of your nymph, and all of the trout beads have a very standard, very uniform hole in them. And you're simply going to thread the egg onto your piece of mono or your piece of fluorocarbon there. And what I do now is I just let it slide down and right out of my way. Next, you're going to tie on a hook. And again, this is one of the trout beads hooks here. They've got a nice wide gape to them. They hold fish very, very well. And you're going to tie that right onto the end of your fluorocarbon. After you've slid the egg on, you will make that mistake several times, I just about promise you. And we're going to do that with just a really simple improved clinch knot. You can go ahead and trim that little tag end off of there. Now the important part. So you've got your hook on here, and you've got your bead, which as of right now is just kind of free sliding in between there. And you're going to take your bead, and about an inch or so above the hook, we're going to go ahead and we're going to affix it to that piece of tippet, and we're going to use one of the trout beads pegs here. And this is a clear kind of rubbery silicone peg type thing. Some guys also like to use the toothpicks here, but these are a little bit nicer because they're soft rubber. They really grip the tippet, and really hold these eggs in place. And all you're going to do is you're going to slide that into the egg, again with your tippet running through there, and then you're going to pull it until it's snug. So that's what it's going to look like before you trim it. And you'll be able to slide the bead up and down and stuff a little bit to get it right into place where you want it. Then you're going to take a nippers or a scissors, and you're just going to come through and you're going to trim either side of that little rubber peg, just like so. And you're going to want to save the end that you trimmed, because these pegs are actually tapered on either end. So you'll be able to flip this around and get two uses out of one of these pegs, which is really, really neat. So now that's kind of the finished product right there, what you have. You've got your hook with an improved clinch knot, the bead about an inch, inch and a half above it with that peg going through it. And again, this is, you know, a fairly modular system here, so you can slide this up and down. But again, you're going to want to keep it, you know, about an inch or so away, inch and a half away from that hook, so that when the fish comes in and eats that egg, it's going to get that hook, you know, right in the mouth there. And just a very, very neat system, a very different option. There isn't that waiting period of waiting for that yarn fly to soak up some water. These sink real nice. And again, just a lot of different colors that we have in stock, a lot of different options and stuff like that, and very, very neat looking beads, and we're really excited about using these as an alternative for an egg pattern for spring steelhead. So again, that was a real quick overview of what we like to, or what I like to carry with me to the river day in and day out for spring steelhead fishing. These items that we've covered today will cover you for a variety of different options and stuff like that, whether you prefer to swing flies or fish a nymph and indicator for these spring steelhead. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.